brother. It's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just the
Duo.
of feathery brethren, weathering any season to see the Eagles eating teams like Scrammy's top with cheese. It's Philadelphia. Both and Zach kicking it cooler than
two.
Penguins till Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some
Birds with Friends.
The early bird gets the worm, but prefers getting turned like a turn on some
Birds with Friends.
Wulf and Zach coming at you with stats and things flapping.
We are going to rip out the hearts of other podcasts. We are going to bite off their eyeballs. We're going to start every segment watching the scene from The Last of the Mohicans where the guy takes a bite out of the other guy's heart. We may not be good, but we're going to be nasty. We're going to reflect the blue-collar nature of this city. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Wednesday morning podcast, Birds with Friends. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman, Marissa Dunn. Zach, this is, we were talking before the pod. We said we're finally getting you a morning pod. He said, this isn't morning. This is the heat of your day. This is nothing.
That is correct. I would say good morning to both of you, but it's really good mid-morning to both of you. I've been going at this now since 5 a.m. or so, right? So excited for this pod, excited for this week. This, Wednesday is when the page turns to the week ahead in a huge game against the Jaguars. We're talking to Doug Peterson this morning. We have Jalen Hurts this afternoon. We have Nick Sirianni midday today. So there's a lot going on, and excited to start it with the two of you. You
really do. Like you can sense the pep, the energy in your step here. This is fantastic.
It's a new week, a new opportunity. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot going on. I like to sort of catch up on what's going on in the world in the morning, and Twitter helps me do that. It says, and these are the big stories here. We've got the hurricane. Obviously, we're worried about people down in Florida. It says the Justice Department says seized Mar-a-Lago materials list is full and accurate.
I knew that's where this was going.
No. That stuff we know about. And then the number 3 thing here, then this is important. This is what Twitter is good for, to let you know what the important things going on in the world are. Actor Dean Cain's tweet about wearing mask on a plane is discussed. Any thoughts, Zach?
No, I mean, honestly, my attention has been diverted elsewhere. It was a bad day in Philadelphia yesterday. So I was consuming a lot of that type of content this morning. But no, I'm not familiar with the Dean Cain story. I will leave that to you. Right now, my focus is on preparing for Eagles Jaguars. There is some news at the top we can get to. It's very minor news, but LaRaven Clark got signed off.
Excuse me. Are you gonna you can't, if you're gonna do that, throw it to yourself at least.
Oh, we're doing the Stone Cold News. Okay, I don't know if that merits Stone Cold Newsman level.
Well, you wanted to lead the show with it. You thought it was that important, so you might as well toss it to yourself.
Whoa. Okay, let's toss it to myself. There's actually a few nuggets that I can share, so let's get to it. Brandon Graham won NFC Defensive Player of the Week for his performance against the Washington Commanders. It's the second consecutive week that the Eagles have had a Defensive Player of the Week, and the third week in a row this season when the Eagles have had a Player of the Week from one side of the ball, or from a side of the ball, I should say. If you recall, Zach McPherson won Special Teams Player of the Week after Week 1. Then yesterday afternoon, LaRaven Clark did not, or he was signed off the practice squad by the Tennessee Titans, so he's now a member of the Titans. The Eagles lose a veteran offensive lineman. And what's also notable is the Eagles did not sign anyone from a different practice squad to their 53-man roster. And the reason why I say that's notable is because they can't keep doing this Britton Covey game where they're elevating him from the practice squad. They did it the maximum 3 times, so now the next time he would need to come up to the 53-man roster. So my guess is he's on the 53 for this weekend's game, because I believe the Eagles had until today, but I think yesterday, to sign a player from a different practice squad. So I imagine they'll fill that 53rd spot internally now, assuming they want Covey to return punts and kicks, as we saw this past weekend against the Jaguars. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Zach. And obviously, you didn't touch on this because you may be sheepish about it, but LaRaven Clark leaving and going to the Titans means that he's not going to be on the Eagles roster, and that means we can close the book on Flu World Order, as Deniz let us know on Twitter, crowning a blowout champion in the likeness of yours truly, Bo Wulf, with 54 points to 73 and 72 for you and the former co-host who shall remain nameless.
Terrific strategy to invent games that people don't understand, win those games, and then go and gloat about winning.
It's a very easy game to understand. You just rank the likelihood that guys are going to be back on the team.
Oh, okay. I was confusing this one with what was the game we did of which practice squad for futures contract players most likely.
Again, an easy game to understand.
Okay. Nonetheless, I'm focused on the game against the Jaguars this weekend. Big game, big week for the Eagles. Curious to see how they come out today. Nick Sirianni said on Monday that there were no major injuries or no injuries of serious concern. We'll see the injury report today. My guess is you have a lot of players resting. I think it's going to be their typical Wednesday routine is a heavy rest day for some of the key veterans. Maybe they have some guys limited. I think Thursday's practice injury report is when we'll have a better indication of if there's anything to worry about come Friday.
All right. Well, we do have some news and some thoughts on the game to get to from the last game. But before we do that, why don't we take a little break? We're going to be back with Austin Mock from The Athletic, whose model is pretty high on the Eagles, and we'll talk about that when we return.
We got to wait 30 seconds. The ad is loading.
Unbelievable.
Morning pods, all right? It's throwing us all off.
You see what you've done to us, Zach, these morning pods?
Zach,
do you want to tease our ad? You want to go into our ad?
This ad is not very good.
Well, no, for the record, the morning pod was Bo's idea today. He wasn't available for the Tuesday pod, if you recall. So we are not here. I like the
ad's ready.
Pod. Okay.
Here we go.
After a long day or even an intense workout, you're probably wondering how you can help your body recover. Well, that's where Next Evo comes in. Next Evo Naturals Body Recovery Cream, a new Revive CBD complex, will help you in those situations. The Body Recovery Cream is clinically shown to deeply penetrate your skin with pure CBD to support full body and targeted recovery when and where you need it. And then Revive CBD complex capsules combine the power of fast-absorbing CBD and curcumin to promote a healthy inflammation response and help you feel restored. And the great thing about this is there are creams and capsules and gummies, so there are different ways to do this. I could use it after a long day. I could use it after a good workout. I could use it when I'm trying to get the recovery that my body needs. Next Evo's Body Recovery Cream contains pure CBD that's specially formulated for rapid absorption, and it has whole body comfort that's perfect after a long day or a hard workout, and it's easy to apply for targeted relief. It's dermatologist tested formula with a naturally soothing combination of hemp-derived CBD, moisturizing shea butter, and protective vitamin E that moisturizes and softens your skin. Revive CBD Complex adds the benefits of curcumin to help your body recover with just 2 capsules a day. They use clinically studied CBD that's delivered faster and more effective by Next Evo's signature Smart Sorb technology for 4 times better absorption than regular CBD. Next Evo natural products are made with 100% U.S. grown hemp and are THC free, they're cruelty free, and they're non-GMO. For full body recovery when you need it, try Next Evo Naturals Revive and Recovery Bundle, including fast absorbing body recovery cream and Revive CBD complex. Or shop the gummies, capsules, and mints, proven to absorb 4 times faster than standard CBD oil. Get up to 25% off when you subscribe and spend $50 or more at nextevo.com/recover with promo code BIRDS. That's nextevo.com/recover, promo code BIRDS.
All right, back on Birds with Friends. Zach, that was a bit of a mouthful, that ad read. Good for you for getting that done.
I still struggle with, is it Kirkhoman? Is that how you pronounce it? I stumbled there.
Kurt Coleman is his name, the former 7th-round pick. Yeah.
I know much more about Kurt Coleman than Kirkhoman, but Kirkhoman is a very beneficial ingredient of Evo.
Next Evo.
It's also got Nate Allen in it.
Yeah, I see.
You see what I did there?
Safeties of Eagles past.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Austin Mock, welcome to the show. First of all, give us give our listeners who may not be familiar sort of the Austin Mock background. Give us what you're bringing to the table here.
Yeah, so mostly I develop models for various sports, NFL being one of those, and using a bunch of different metrics. I'm basically just projecting how how well a team performs on offense, how well a team performs on defense, and can basically use that as a matchup against the team they're playing, and that spits out a game projection. From there, I use those projections, simulate the whole season, get some Super Bowl odds, which I think your listeners will enjoy how things are playing out in that regard. But yeah, that's basically the gist of what I do, and I use that to bet on the NFL and other sports. So yeah, that's basically me.
And from a like nominative determinism standpoint, how much did having the last name Mock play into your life's work of creating these models?
It didn't much, but the amount of like comments that I get from people like, "Oh, you should name I did some work with the like NFL draft and people like, "Oh, like, what do you do? Like the mock draft? Like what?"
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot of play on words there.
It's like the weatherman with the last name Storm, or
right. It's like match made in heaven.
Yeah.
There you go.
So you hinted at it, and your model is quite high on the Eagles, the highest Super Bowl odds of any team. And I think, well, I'll let you explain it, but how much of that is the fact that they have this easy schedule, they are favored by your model to win every game that's left on their schedule right now, and so that there's like a path to home field, versus how much is like actual strength of the team based on what you have?
Yeah, I think the schedule is the biggest factor. It's not that I have them bad. I have them ranked 5th in my model right now. So they're not the best team. They're not the best team in the NFC. It's very close. They're really interchangeable with the teams at the top of the NFC. But the schedule, I mean, it's perfect. I don't want to say it's a cakewalk to the 1 seed because it's the NFL. Injuries could happen. We're seeing that with the Bills right now. Their entire secondary seems to be gone. So Eagles are very healthy right now, but like you said, I have them favored in every game. The closest one is the Week 16 matchup with Dallas. That's, Dallas has looked better than what I thought after their Week 1 game. I know Dak Prescott isn't there, but I'm expecting Prescott to be fully healthy by the time that game is played. But outside of that, like there's not even that many games that are like projected to be below a field goal because of how soft the schedule is. So that's one. The Eagles are really good, and I still might be underrating them because my model is slowly catching up to Jalen Hurts' the new form of Jalen Hurts maybe that we're seeing. But the schedule combined with just being a good team and a very healthy team at this point kind of gives them the edge of being the Super Bowl favorite.
I was going to ask you that as well. I'm curious, when you look at those game by games, and make sure you check that out. I believe that was in Mike Sando's column from Monday, where he had your model predicting the game by game, or showing the projected line for the game by game ahead of the Eagles. How much of that is a reflection of the way the Eagles are playing, and how much of is it a reflection of some of these opponents that perhaps might have seemed more difficult when the schedule came out or going into the season, be it Arizona, be it Indianapolis, perhaps even Green Bay, although your model seems to like Green Bay. How much is it those teams maybe not playing up to what the early season or preseason expectations were?
Yeah, I think Arizona was one that I wasn't super high on, but they definitely gotten worse through 3 weeks. They haven't looked overly impressive outside of 8 minutes against Vegas there. Indy, another one, they've kind of slow. I don't know if Indy's going to take a little bit to get going. We've kind of seen that with Indy in years past, new quarterback, getting into Reich's system. I don't know if that's it, but I would say the biggest thing is the NFC looks weaker as a whole. There's been a lot of injuries to NFC teams, it seems. Green Bay's had offensive line use. Tampa Bay had every receiver and every offensive lineman seems to be injured as well. But Jalen Hurts is really bumped up in my quarterback rankings. I wasn't overly fond of him coming into the year. I wrote a piece about kind of who had value in the betting market. I thought the Eagles were a little bit overrated because I didn't trust him. I still am a little skeptical because the schedule's been kind of easy, but you can't. I always say if you're playing bad teams and you absolutely smoke bad teams, that's a good thing. I think people discredit that too much. Obviously, it's going to matter more when they play a tougher opponent. But what they're doing so far, Jalen Hurts has quieted my doubts quite a bit through 3 games.
So without giving up like the special sauce of what goes into the model, what are the kinds of things it's taking into account, and how flexible is it, especially early in the season, to sort of correct the preseason priors based on what you've seen through, and how quickly will it take to do that? And like, what is the sample size in which you're willing to weight what's going on this season more than preseason valuation?
Yeah, so there's 2 parts to this. There's a team value part, obviously defense, and I think there is an offensive component that's not 100% driven by quarterback play. I think we're kind of seeing that when, Matt Ryan, I think most people thought was an upgrade over Carson Wentz, and he gets plugged into the Colts. It's not exactly, being easy right away. But so the quarterback, that data does go back a little bit further. It's not anything long term. I think anything outside of really like the last 3 years, you're probably like looking at too far away of data that's useful. And my model heavily weights, not heavily, but weights more recent data as more important. So, games that Jalen Hurts played in 2020 are weighed at a much lower, factor than, say, games at the end of last year when the Eagles came on. And same goes for defense. I think that those things are things that I think is very important. Is you need to look at how teams played recently. And I think the 2021 Eagles are the exact picture of that. Things didn't get going early. They kind of switched their offensive philosophy and they turned it on in the second half. So from metric standpoint, there's a bunch of different things that go into it, but just looking at, my model does strip out some garbage time plays, which is very relevant to the Eagles because they've gotten out to such big leads in these games. If you look at their EPA per play, success rates, yards per play, whatever metric you want to look at, if you just look at the raw number taking in all the plays, you're probably not going to be like super impressed with the Eagles. But if you strip out the garbage time, Eagles are number 1 in offense EPA per play, I think 5 in success rate EPA per play. Defensively, they're number 2 in EPA per play. So outside of those, they're like 7 and 13th if you don't strip out the garbage time. So that is a question for me. Is I'd like to see them put away teams more, but it's also like they just kind of like kept their foot on them and kind of put them into submission in the second half there. So they've just been impressive across the board here, and everything in my model is being super impressed by what the Eagles are doing.
In your experience, barring any material changes to the personnel, so a quarterback getting hurt or adding someone who was not there the previous 3 games,
Raven Clark, for instance.
What's the sample size the sample size of games when you usually feel comfortable that, okay, this is I don't want to say an accurate prediction, but a more comfortable prediction than with a 3-game sample size?
I'd say probably I'm starting to feel comfortable, like say game 5, 6.
Okay.
I think you probably are playing a good range of teams, if that makes sense. Like the Eagles, I would say their schedule's been pretty soft to start, even though the Vikings, I think, are pretty solid. But I'm not big on the Lions. I'm not big on the Commanders. But you get 6 weeks in, 5-6 games in. I think you're getting a well-rounded schedule where you can tell, like, hey, all right, this team, the Eagles are still beating teams by a lot over the next 3. It's like, okay, this is legit. If Jalen Hurts is still playing at the high level, a top, 5, he's playing at probably a higher level than top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now. If he continues that for another 3 weeks, I'm probably going to sit here and say, yeah, okay, it's a change. It's real. It's not just a 3-game sample that's still small. Once you get 5, 6, I'm pretty comfortable. But like 8, 9 is when I'm really like, all right, this is who they are. This is what he is as a quarterback now. And my model is basically training to do that, to where I would say by like week 9 of this year, 2020 is probably not even factored in to my maybe very, very little into my Jalen Hurts projection, because it's not who he is. We've seen that with Josh Allen. He was terrible for, I don't know if terrible is the right word, but he wasn't good for 2 years. Now he's one of the best quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, very early was right on the scene. Good. So we've seen these changes with quarterbacks who it takes time. Trevor Lawrence, we might be seeing that this year. I know they have some coaching issues, opponent of the Eagles this week. But yeah, I'd say week 9, I'm definitely going to know. But week 5, 6, I'm going to start get a pretty good idea.
You teased the Jaguars there, Austin, and I'm curious how bullish your model is on them. One of 3 teams joining the Eagles and Bills, who are in the top 10 in EPA per drive on both offense and defense. Are you buying the Jaguars so far?
No, because I don't want to count their. It's tough because the division's not good. They're another team that could turn into like they're benefiting from an easy schedule. The Colts aren't as good as we think. The Titans have injury problems. They don't look as good as what many thought heading into the year. But it is tough because second-year quarterbacks tend to make a big jump. My motto accounts for that. It's hard to account for, I will admit, because this doesn't happen very often. The difference between what Urban Meyer and that coaching staff had last year in place versus what Doug Peterson has in place this year through 3 games, it does look like there's a huge difference, and I'm not denying that at all. Their win against the Chargers, I'm thinking, is a little. Justin Herbert was hurt. Like the Chargers in typical Charger fashion had like 37 injuries in that game. It took, of course, significant players on both sides of the ball. I think their offense is good. They can get after the passer. I think that's an area that I want to see more from Hurts, is if he is blitzed and if he is pressure, how does that hold up? But I'm still a little shy on them. Again, I need to see that maybe that 5-6 games to really get a better feeling on if this Jags, offensive output and defensive output is legit. But I'm definitely downgrading that Chargers performance considering all the injuries the Chargers had during that game.
So if the Eagles fans are listening to this pod and they're saying, I like this model, I like this team, I want to start looking at flight prices for Phoenix, Arizona in February, okay, who are the other NFC team, or I should say, who's the other NFC team that you think is closest on the tail to the Eagles? Because the model says the Packers, but both the Packers and the Bucks fit that category that I was talking about, where there would be material changes in personnel relative to what they've had at certain points this year. And you look at Tampa's wide receivers, you look at Green Bay's offensive line. The Rams have had some players in and out. So who's the team where you would say, with a larger sample size, is the biggest threat to the Eagles?
I don't know if it's one. I'm gonna say a tie between Green Bay and Tampa Bay. A lot of moving parts, like you said. I'm a little bit more confident in. I guess Tampa Bay's defense has surprised me a little bit. I thought they've been just fantastic through the season so far. But I trust I'm not saying I trust their quarterback position more. I'm going to say it's kind of even there. But their receivers, I think, can be the bigger, the thing that puts them above the Packers over, as we get more data. The Packers don't really have a receiver that's like, I'm excited about long term in a way. They could have someone emerge. Of course, it's easy.
Romeo, right?
Yeah,
I like this Randall Cobb guy. I think he's got a real future.
Yeah, it's who knows what's going to happen there. But obviously it's easier when Aaron Rodgers is throwing you passes as well. But if Tampa Bay can get their offensive line healthy, in the second half of the year. And that's really one of the keys. You talked about, possibly getting flights. The Eagles are perfectly healthy. It's almost, I would say it's impossible to go a whole season without the health. And that's really what it's going to come down to, I think, for this Eagles team, is how healthy are you going into the playoffs? I think their schedule works up to where they're going to get there. And it's going to be with Green Bay and Tampa Bay. How are those offensive lines? Are they going to stay healthy? They've already shown that they're banged up, if you will. Are they going to be able to stay a whole year? Same with the wide receiver core. And that's why I'm not super high on the Rams. I'm not putting them into that conversation because they lost some key pieces from last year's Super Bowl team. They are, I would say, less deep than the other teams there, that if significant injuries were to happen to them, they're not able to handle them as well. So Green Bay and Tampa Bay, I think, are the two teams to watch out for, and they have the tougher road to the 1 seed. So Philly might be seeing some home playoff games come January.
My wife likes that. Yeah, she's happy to hear that, right? So.
Yep.
All right. I was gonna make like a model joke there, but I think we can fill that in. All right. Austin Mock, thank you so much for the insight. You can follow Austin at amock419 on Twitter. What's the 419?
That's my birthday. Is
nice.
When I made this back in high school, my Twitter handle, I haven't changed it to a more professional one. Just writing it out. So
nice. It's like what you're like. You don't go all the way to 420. You go one less.
Yeah, I was the gift before that day. So
there you go.
Well said.
Well, Austin, thanks for taking time this morning, and we'll be following and seeing how the model tweaks itself over the next couple of weeks. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we'll do. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Sure. All right, we'll take a little break and come back, talk maybe some empty formation, maybe some Jalen Hurts, maybe some Shane Steichen. We'll see what we got.
Let me tell you about Trade Coffee. It's a coffee subscription service unlike anything you've tried before because they partner with top independent roasters to freshly roast and send the best coffees in the country direct to your home on your preferred schedule. The coffee I get from Trade is so good, I can't believe how much I like what they picked for me, and their team actually worked with me to create my own custom collection, which is great for me because, frankly, I'm recording this ad at 3:18 in the morning. That means when I wake up tomorrow and the kids are getting ready to go to school, your boy's going to need some coffee. So the truth is, like, I wouldn't mind if it was just bad coffee. I would still shove it down my gullet, but it's such a treat when it tastes good. And that's what Trade does for me. And if what I got isn't up your alley, well, don't worry. Trade will have whatever it is you want. You can shop their most popular coffees by roast or flavor profile, or you can take their coffee quiz and get expertly matched with coffees you'll love. So, if you want to support small businesses and brew the best cup of coffee you've ever made at home, it's time to try Trade Coffee. Right now, Trade is offering our listeners a total of $30 off your first order plus free shipping at drinktrade.com/BWF. That's drinktrade.com/BWF for $30 off your subscription to the best coffees in the country.
All right, back on Birds with Friends. Zach, how are you?
I'm great. Excited for the rest of this podcast and especially for what's ahead today.
Okay. I thought, tell me if you agree with me. I thought yesterday was Shane Steichen's best press conference as Eagles offensive coordinator. Agree or disagree?
What do you mean by best?
I thought he gave some color. I thought he was in a good mood. I thought he was willing to share the kinds of things that you might have wanted him to share before that aren't giving anything away, but are still interesting. For instance, his description of the last play of the first half against Washington, that we were debating whether that was a Jalen call or whether that was a Shane call. It was a Jalen call. He explained that things were happening so quick. I think it was as I speculated on Sunday night that they were calling two plays in the huddle, expecting that if they didn't get it, it would still be close enough to just get up and sneak. But because they lost yards, Jalen had to scramble to call something else. I think that is what happened. I don't know. He gave the description of Jalen Hurts around the building, which you had in your notes today. I don't know. You're skeptical. You don't agree with me?
No, I'm not. First off, I thought that was a very Bo Wolf line. It was as I speculated, right?
Yeah.
It was.
Take a whiff.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of taking a whiff, I think Shane Steichen did, right? I mean, his offense is playing really well. His play calling has been spot on. And my big takeaway when I came away from that and when we were walking out of the press conference is I think they're believing what they're seeing. And so they're willing to talk up Jalen, talk up his team, maybe give some details. he didn't go all the way, right? Like he wasn't he wasn't going to tell us with the empty formation why that's been so beneficial for the Eagles. And also as
talk about
as Bo correctly pointed out, you can check out Saturday's Beat Back and Forth or email exchange that Bo and I do. And Bo pointed out empty then before it was getting all this Twitter love. So if you want to find out the story before the story, make sure you read Bo Wulf. But I thought Shane Steichen, he was more descriptive than he's been in the past, and there's reason to be happy in that building. They're playing well, they're coaching well. Things are going swimmingly right now. So
you know what I appreciate about Shane Steichen?
What's that?
You know
that he wears normal clothes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's the only coach I've ever seen who doesn't just wear like the football guy issued material during the day.
Gannon as well.
Gannon wears Eagle stuff. He usually wears that long sleeve, tight fitting Eagles thing, right?
Yeah, I think he usually wears solid color though, not like
it's still an Eagles logo, right?
I mean,
like Shane's up there wearing like khakis and a Patagonia. Like, I kind of respect that.
There you go. Yeah.
Let's talk about the empty because I do think it's interesting. You try to think about what ways they're going to grow the offense. We talked about second year in the offense for Jalen Hurts. How much does that matter? There was a good conversation about it on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast with Fran Duffy and Greg Cosell that I would recommend listening to. And they explained, how it is that going empty is a tell for the quarterback. It's truth serum because the defense has to declare basically whether it's going to be man or zone. But if you just look at the numbers, the Eagles last year did not do a lot of empty. I think I tweeted it out yesterday. I think it was like 30th in the league in snaps per game in empty or something like that. The most that they had in any single game was 9, and that was in the loss to the Chargers. Everything else was never above 6. And the last 2 weeks, they've had 9 and 10 snaps, and they're being very productive. Jalen Hurts, 17 of 20 for like 140-something yards on those plays. It's been very effective. And if you just think about it on a very base level, it makes sense, right? And it makes sense that this team is better positioned to take advantage of this than any other team, because what's the limitation of going empty is you don't have a running game and it's going to be hard to protect the quarterback. Well, when you have an offensive line that's as good at pass protection as the Eagles are, you can trust that he's going to have a little bit of time back there. You also have a quarterback who can escape pass rush better than other quarterbacks can. And you have a quarterback who can still be a running back if you want to call a run play, which we saw them call that QB draw out of empty against Washington. And so they can still have the full complement of the offense and trust that he's going to get enough protection. And so it really is, maybe we are overstating it and maybe they'll dial it back a little bit, but it really is like, this is the team that is perfectly suited to take advantage of all of the benefits and not have to worry about some of the negatives to using that.
I think you explained it well there. And the other thing I would add too is it also allows for pre-snap motion to get some type of indicator, right? You see sometimes you can motion someone into the backfield. There's a handful of different things you can do from lining up out of empty. I've always liked it. You've seen college offenses do it quite a bit. It doesn't mean 5 wide receivers. You can be empty with in 11 personnel and move,
which is what the Eagles do basically. Yeah,
exactly. So I really like it because of the flexibility, because it allows for the quick passing game, because it spreads the field. You force the defense to cover the entire width of the field, right? So I'm a proponent of it. I've never been a play caller before, other than in Madden. But
I was gonna say, when you were playing Madden growing up, wasn't like the ultimate cheat code going empty with Michael Vick, and then it's just like you could do whatever you want.
I'm glad you said that, because I didn't want to bring it up to seem like, all right, just because something works in Madden, it works in real life. But you're absolutely correct. Like oftentimes, oftentimes Madden can be like an indicator for what works in real life, and empty with a mobile quarterback was always an appealing thing.
Yeah. Okay. What else is going on in the Eagles world that you'd like to discuss?
So we'll go heavy.
Any other thoughts from the game that we didn't talk about?
So we did get some clarification on Devontae Smith. We brought that up on the post-game pod, and Sirianni said they've been talking about this since the summer, and they want to get the ball in Devontae's hands. It's not going to be a regular thing, but I think when you have clear return situations or situations that are high leverage returns, the Eagles kind of veered this way with Deshaun Jackson later on in his Eagles career, where they use him in specific situations. I wouldn't compare Devontae as a returner to Deshaun as a returner. But I think I don't think this is a one-time thing. I can see them mixing Devontae in. And by the way, like his production his senior year at Alabama as a returner was really impressive, right? And he didn't do it his first 3 years, but he did it that year. But that's clarification as far as that. We spoke about Sipas and them working out a punter. As it turns out, they worked out. Is it Michael Pilardi was the punter who's left-footed, and they wanted to prepare Britton Covey for a left-footed punter. So
was your initial reaction like, is that allowed? That's sort of what I would like. Are you allowed to just bring in a guy like to practice basically? And I wonder if there's like a little loophole that the Eagles tried to take advantage of because Britton Covey's on the practice squad. So maybe he's allowed to like be out there with a tryout guy. I don't know.
I don't know either, but it certainly makes sense. It was one of those things when I heard it, I was like, all right, that adds up. Now,
otherwise, like, is Michael Pilardi just going to travel the league, like working out for every team before they play a left-footed punter?
It's something to monitor. I do know Belichick used to always like left-footed punters because
famously.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's someone who knows how to gain an advantage. Something to think about.
All you got to do is get Matt Patricia to run your offense, and you're going to be guns blazing.
It's not working out this year too well. So from the game film and going through it, I think this was one of those what you saw was what you got games, right? They looked really good in person. They looked really good on film. What jumped out to me that the numbers bore this out, but then when you watched it, it confirmed it, that it wasn't really complex from a defensive perspective. They were winning one-on-ones, right? And part of that was, Carson wasn't helping. I was surprised. I don't know if we said this on the pod or if this was in a conversation. Like Scott Turner didn't do anything to really help Carson in that game. But I thought that
wait, hold on a second. How dare you? Scott Turner is the world's greatest gift to offensive scheming. He knew exactly what he was doing.
You have to fill me in on this joke.
I'm circling back to the end of the. You might have been asleep by then, but
okay.
Last pod. Yeah. I'm just saying that
everybody's a blur.
Getting ahead of their skis on Scott Turner love.
Well, if I recall from the last pod, you were bigger on Scott Turner than I. I mean,
that
you
was
were talking
2 pods ago.
Okay, 2 pods ago. Okay, yeah, you've been talking. This guy
I'm calling
up,
myself to account for
like he's Kyle Shanahan
for listening to everybody about.
Yeah,
I agree. It's a shot at myself.
But
well, speaking of just parroting things that I've heard elsewhere from people I trust. You say that the scheme was not super involved on defense, but I do think we should give credit to the back seven. As Fran and Mr. Cosell described, the way that they are like passing things off is really impressive, especially considering that this is only the 3rd time they're playing together. When you're like aside from Avonte Maddox and Darius Slay, I guess Marcus Epps. So 40% of the defensive backfield is new. It seems like they are gelling, if we can use the sports journalist cliche, quicker than maybe expected.
I think there are going to be a few mea culpas among our listeners on Jonathan Gannon, because I think Jonathan Gannon knows what he's doing. I've said that all along.
Let's get Diniz on next week after the Jaguars
I
game.
think that was a shot right at Diniz. I think
no doubt about it. Yeah, and of course, it's a bold move of you to poke the bear, knowing that there's another swooper coming up this week, and he's going to listen to that and maybe dial something up especially for you. But
a 2-point swooper.
We'll check in at the quarter pole with Daniz next week if we can, to get his thoughts on his evolving thoughts on Jonathan Gannon.
And it's still early. I think Doug Peterson's an outstanding play caller, so I think Jacksonville's really going to find ways to challenge this defense. But I think, and by the way, that was not intended for Diniz. That was intended more for I do. It sounds like a flex. I do radio from time to time.
From time to time.
More than from time to time. A few regular spots.
Now that's a flex.
Yeah.
Colin Coward over here.
And the amount of, I joked with somebody that I don't want to come off as like Gannon's agent here, right? The results are going to bear itself out. And I've been critical about Gannon in certain situations, but I also recognize that I recognize the intent of what he's doing. And I think that the personnel is kind of matching what he's doing. I think he's growing as a coordinator. It was hard to defend him after week 1, but they've played at a really high level 2 consecutive weeks, and we'll see how this goes. But I think he's finding ways to be effective without it looking the way it did under Buddy Ryan. And so much of kind of Eagles fans, it's like it has to look like it did when Buddy Ryan or Jim Johnson was here. And there's more than one way to play defense.
Okay, fair enough. This is like one of the classic things that Zach is like so good at.
Thank you. I don't know where this is going, but thank you.
During the Jonathan Gannon press conference yesterday, he talks about he mentions, like, as an aside, like, coach has the things that he has the stats that he measures, and we're doing a good job with that. And Zach immediately recalls like exactly what it is. Explain this moment.
No. All right.
You mean explosives and turnovers?
Well, no. So.
And Gannon's like sheepishly like, yes, you caught me.
No, it wasn't like that at all. It was, he said
you've got all the receipts.
He's not big on stats, but there are 2 things so I just want to confirm what those 2 things are. The worst thing you can do as a reporter, well, not the worst thing, there are worse things you can do, but one of the worst things you can do as a reporter is
homicide.
assume, right? So you always just clarify. It's the old journalism expression, right? If your mother says that she loves you, checks your facts, right? But just trying to make sure that I knew what he was talking about with those 2 stats. And by the way, that's like the spirit behind.
Yeah, but you're letting him know that you know what he's talking about.
That's not at all what I wasn't trying to let him know that I know. I was trying to confirm that's what it was, because when I go and write this, if I assume that's what it is and it's wrong, then all of a sudden that gets passed around the building like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
I'm not. This is not a bad thing. You are encyclopedic. You've got all this stuff.
I don't think that's encyclopedic. It's that when someone says there's 2 stats that the head coach cares about, right? And I go and write that, any discerning reader will be like, well, what are those 2 stats? Yeah. You have to bring that up. And if I say, I assume the stats are this, but I didn't actually ask, I wasn't asking for like a soliloquy there. I was
but the way that the interplay there was very funny, because Gannon was specifically trying to not say what it was. You called him out on exactly what it was, and he had to be like, well, yes, that's correct.
I wasn't trying to do that. I was just trying to confirm. So because I had something specific that I was just trying to confirm. That's
You're
all
a truth teller. You're trying to get the truth for the masses.
Or for our readers. Yes, I hope our readers are the masses, but as it swells into the masses, certainly our readers and our listeners as well.
I thought that was good. And the Eagles lead the league in explosive plays on offense, and they haven't turned the ball over. So
they have turned the ball over.
Oh yeah, they haven't thrown an interception. Sorry, one.
They have thrown an interception. Gainwell's hands.
That's right.
Yeah. But no, they've been really
Again,
good.
a truth teller. The man is nothing but facts.
No, they've been really good at this, and we'll see if it continues. Because, by the way, Jacksonville has, the turnover differential. That defense, I know Louis Riddick has been saying this, but if the Mike Caldwell defense keeps this up, Mike Caldwell comes from a really good coaching tree, right? And Andy Reid is outstanding. Todd Bowles is outstanding. Bruce Arians. He's worked for Bruce Arians as well, obviously, but he has that Bowles background with him. He's a really good defensive coordinator. I've only seen Jaguars in brief highlights until yesterday. I tried to pull them up a bit and look through it, and man,
defense is good, man.
The defense is good. The offense is creative. Christian Kirk was the butt of a lot of jokes around free agency.
What a butt!
But he's playing well. Zay Jones was the butt of a lot of jokes.
It was the tush of a lot of jokes.
But Zay Jones has made some plays. I was expecting more when I watched them from ETN, but I still think there's a lot to scratch there. I think he's going to grow. James Robinson.
Remember back in the day when the Eagles their production stuff was called ETN?
Oh yes, Eagles.
They rebranded, but it used to be ETN.
Yes, yes, I do recall that. So we'll get heavy in. We'll get heavy into Jacksonville on Thursday, but this is going to be a good test for the Eagles.
I think what surprised me has been how well they've protected Trevor Lawrence. He's facing the lowest pressure rate in the league, and that offensive line was not expected to be quite so good. I mean, it's only been 3 games, but
yeah, I didn't focus on the offensive line, but when I've been reading about them, Brandon Sheriff has been looking like his old self this year.
One moa culpa from rewatching the game from my end. I think I said on the podcast and wrote in the day after that after his first series, I thought Jordan Davis was a little bit quiet. That was not the case. He played well in this game. I thought it was his best game. So I want to just pull that back, retract that, assess the facts as we get them.
And Gannon, by the way,
he's still playing, on a relative pitch count. He had the 5th most snaps again for defensive tackles. And so even when he's playing well, I think it's in service of keeping everybody fresh. That's good. It's going to be helpful in the long run, but it still goes to the resources allocation. We're talking about this is still a guy who's playing 20 snaps a game.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see when and if he's going to have more of a third down role. But it's
There's
the old dilemma. Who do you take off the field? Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Who are you taking off the field? So Cox is playing at a high level. Hargrave looked good. So there's. I also think this is going to be something that they're going to have to figure out what that line looks like next year. And I imagine he's going to swell into a bigger role next year. But
he's trying to lose weight.
Yeah, true. Good point. But he'll grow into a bigger role next year. But he is contributing. And you ask Gannon, was this the best game he played? And Gannon liked that question because it shows you've been grinding the tape. You also had one. Now we shouldn't be just trading compliments here, but
I think you look great.
You had one on Monday, and you've done this a few times with Nick, where Nick is really impressed with your football acumen.
I don't think that's true. I think he's annoyed that I'm asking these questions, but go ahead.
No, because you're not asking the generic. You're playing against Jacksonville. How excited are you?
Monday after a game. Let's talk about the game.
Yeah, I mean, you were very specific on sequencing and the fourth down sequence, and then you had one not last Friday, but the Friday before that he really liked. So yeah, credit to you there.
I mean, I guess I just asked him what happened at the end of the first. Like, I wanted to know, as we talked about, because he said after the game, we wanted to get a touchdown, not a field goal, which is a weird thing to say. Like, it's still the first half. You'll take the points, right? Yeah. And I assumed that meant once they got on the 1 yard line, we're not going to settle for a field goal, which does make sense. You know, you're so close, you might as well try to score. But he said, yeah, like we were going for a touchdown there all the way, which is weird.
I think the week before that I'm referencing was
that was about
when they're going for fourth downs.
Yeah.
And they on third down they know. So
I also wanted to get him on the record about the fourth down at the end of the game, which made sense to me. You go for it because then you keep everybody else off the field. You can end the game, but I just wanted to hear him say it.
Or you can be like that kicker you showed me who did the onside kick, the pick kicker who did the rogue onside kick, right? Maybe you're just trying to rub it in. That was if you haven't checked that out, check out. Bo showed me they had a third string kicker on the field. They were up by a lot against Rhode Island late in the game.
He goes rogue and does a little dribble kick and recovers it himself.
Yes.
And he gets just chewed out on the sideline by his own coach for doing it.
This guy has a memory for a lifetime.
Shoot your shot, absolutely.
Yes.
And that kid is a young king. Are you kidding me?
You're a third string kicker. Also,
this is his moment. This is his time to shine.
Yeah, and if you're a coach from a different
and he got the look.
Yeah, if you're a coach from a different school and you're looking at the transfer portal right now, you're like, this guy can kick onside kicks, right? Maybe he can help me there. So
just like that one. Speaking of college kids getting reamed out, we didn't circle back on your boy Tommy Rees from a couple weeks ago, just pulling a borderline Ken Dorsey in the booth, yelling at his quarterback.
So a few things there. First off, he's not my boy. Okay, number one. Number two. Notre Dame is playing well right now, and Tommy Rees has
what do you mean
he's playing better.
Well?
He's playing better, and Tommy Rees is a big part of it. Number three, this does have an Eagles connection.
How do you say he's not your boy and then give me that fluff?
If it does have an Eagles connection to it, and I meant to follow up on this, but there have been a few other things in the locker room that I've been working on. By the way, when I say Notre Dame put up 45 points in North Carolina last week, right? So
what?
Drew Pine, who's there now, their starting quarterback. His answer to what he said, he wants hard coaching. He told Tommy Rees to coach like that because that's how he saw Tommy Rees coach Ian Book. Ian Book, of course, now with the Eagles. So I haven't asked Ian Book. I should follow up and ask if Tommy Rees coached like that. But honestly, I do have more pressing things. I do have more pressing things to work on in the Eagles locker room. But I don't think it's something we need to cover. I think that if you want to see, an offense that scored 45 points on UNC that beat Cal, they're back to 2-2. I'm not a Notre Dame fan, but I'll give credit where it's due in that regard.
Yeah, famously Catholic Zach Berman.
Syracuse though is 4-0. They just beat UVA. They're playing well. So we discussed that on the previous pod, I recall.
You're trying to get it in now while you still can.
That's true.
How many Boeheims on that team?
On the football team, there are none.
Okay. How many Pascalonis?
Pascaloni was like 4 coaches ago. Yes.
That's still, if you ask me who the coach is, that's who I would say. Obviously. Who is the coach?
How many guesses would you have to guess Syracuse's coach?
I just wouldn't get it. I mean, with a million. Okay. Well, give me his initials.
DB.
Oh, yeah. You know this, Bo.
Dan Baker.
No. His first name's Dino.
Babbles?
Babers.
Babers. That sounds like an annoying nickname a frat guy would have for his girlfriend.
It's very specific of you right there. Do you think you can stump me on a college football coach? Do you think you can get a BCS school that I couldn't tell you their coaches?
Do I think I can name one?
Yeah.
No.
Like, no. Do you
But-
think you can stump me?
Yeah, I think the answer is no. But
Okay.
how
We should
about?
I mean, you might as well try. It's early in
is
the
an
day.
Eagles
Zach will
podcast.
think
We
about
should-
this the rest of the day.
What's that?
Montana.
No, I was talking about Power 5 conference school. So.
Okay, well, oh, geez. I thought you knew what was going on. In
Montana used to be Bobby Houck. I don't know who it might. I think Bobby Houck might have gone back. But
who is the head coach at? I mean, Power 5. You're going to get them all.
Okay.
Indiana.
We don't need to do this conversation. Let's get back to
Indiana.
the Eagles. Indiana's Tom Allen.
Okay. How about Baylor?
Dave Aranda. Let's get
Nebraska.
back to
Who's going to be the coach at Nebraska?
Good question.
that's a good one. I think it will be Kansas's coach Lance Leopold, but they're playing real well right now. Anyways, let's
Lance
get back.
Lenore.
What's that?
Duke.
Duke is Elko, Mike Elko. He's a Penn guy.
Former
Came from Texas A&M.
Wake
Wake Forest. Yeah,
defensive
Wake Forest
coordinator, I believe.
coordinator. Yeah.
Nevada.
Colin Kaepernick.
So Nevada's not
Zach
not
Smithfield.
Power 5, but Jay
Oh.
Norville just left. He went to Colorado State.
I'm just reading comments
And-
in the chat.
Who did they hire to replace him? I apologize. I do not know that one.
Stumped by
Hold on.
Kiroma
Yeah.
something in the chat.
Who are the twins? The Martin twins, right?
Oh yeah, they're at Nevada. We were talking about them this weekend.
Kobe Martin and Cody Martin, the basketball players.
Yeah, so Nevada's Ken Wilson. I would not have gotten that. Anyways, let's wrap it up with the Eagles because we got Doug in an hour or so, and I can get ready for that.
You got to freshen up. You want to take you an hour to freshen up for Doug? It is a video
No,
conference.
Yeah, you have to prepare. You have to prepare.
What are you most excited
prepare to-
about talking to
prepare to
Doug
win.
again?
I'm curious. Look, I'm curious to see I'm curious to take his temperature. Right?
Oh,
You're like,
where?
How you feeling,
No,
Doug?
No, I don't know the right way to frame this, but I am curious. Bill Walsh famously said that he thinks coaches and executives shouldn't be with a team for more than 10 years. He thinks after 10 years you should change jobs. Now, Doug wasn't in Philly for 10 years. He was in Philly for 5. But I'm curious if what? What's so
One of the
funny?
comments. I'm sorry.
I'm curious if Doug thinks that like what's happened in Philly, if he would have turned it around, or if that year off of being in a different situation, being reinvigorated, was advantageous for both sides, right?
Yeah.
Now, I think any coach is confident to say like, yeah, I would have done that, right? But oftentimes the change is good because it just brings fresh ideas, fresh perspective, different messaging. And so, yeah, I think that's beneficial. There's one other thing I should add, and I know this isn't a storyline that Bo gets into, but it probably is of interest to some fans out there.
Okay.
So
shout out me, I
Sirianni's
like it.
So Sirianni's driving down to, or they're on the way down to Washington last weekend, and he sees the Netflix trailer for the Redeem Team documentary, and he sees Kobe Bryant on there, and Kobe Bryant talking about playing Paul Gasol and how Paul Gasol's his brother, but he's gonna kick that guy's rear end, right? And so the first play of the game, Paul Gasol sets the screen, and Kobe just rams right through him, right? And so Sirianni he changes what he already had planned on Saturday night to get this in there. And it was a big message. And then it got pointed out. It was a coincidence that the score was 24-8, Kobe Bryant's 2 numbers. So that you can find that in the notes that are on The Athletic right now.
What does it have to do with Doug?
It doesn't. It doesn't have to do with Doug. It was an Eagles.
I like that
It
stuff,
was
Zach.
an Eagles. Thank you. It was an Eagles topic that I wanted to share with.
Okay, I'm
with the
sorry.
pod. Yes.
I think it would be funny if we all just banded together as a beat and like asked Doug, like, what were you doing going forward on that 4th down? Like very specific game stuff. and like totally
yeah.
ignored
Yeah.
the game.
If like the first question was about injuries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, who's practicing today?
Or like, hey Doug, we never had a chance to circle back on week 17 in
Yes.
2020. Why did you go for it with Nate Sudfeld on that fourth down?
Yeah, or it's like, do you think Rayon Arnold should have taken the snap distribution that he did?
Yeah.
So
We never, I've been waiting to follow up on that.
yes.
Okay.
All
All right. Well,
we're back on Thursday.
Tomorrow late afternoon, I think. What did we say? 4:30.
And we got another guest.
Special guest. Are we sharing it, or are we?
Yeah, I think we can share. We got the man himself, Coach Flynn, coming in tomorrow at
2-0, Coach Flynn, right?
2-0, Coach Flynn, getting ahead of a big game, the Ivy opener against Columbia. Andre Yoshivas on fire. Get his thoughts on Carson Wentz, Doug Peterson, Tommy Reese, all that good stuff from Coach Flynn tomorrow. So for Austin and Zach and Marissa and Elijah and Michael and Doug, I'm Bo. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.